what's up, you guys? Rasati out here in Singapore. This is the Night Owl podcast once again, you guys. On here because I have been recently talking to a lot of people who are slowly discovering that I exist, right? People know who I am for the most part, but they don't realize what it is that I do or how I do it, where it's coming from. And as they discover the brand, as they discover the content, they start talking to me. They find the confidence to contact me in my DMs and start talking to me, asking me questions about my life. And now I've always said, look, my life is an open book. I have nothing to hide. You want to ask me? You ask me, and I will answer to the best of my ability. And it's been a couple of conversations in the last 2 days, actually. One of the gentlemen is from the UK, another gentleman here in Singapore, and it's been fun just to talk to them. And it's not one of those, oh, they slid into my DMs or trying to hit me up or whatever. It's not like that at all. They're genuinely interested in what I have to say. They feel the spark of inspiration when they hear or read something that I've posted. And they're asking me, okay, well, where does this come from? And what, where have you been? What have you been doing? How did you get to this place? How did you figure all this stuff out? Because the one thing that seems to stick out in their mind is the fact that I don't look like I have any wisdom. I mean, okay, maybe not that I don't have any wisdom. I look very young. And then the way I speak, I sound very ancient. So it doesn't jive in their head. And they're trying to they're trying to wrap their head around the fact that, okay, I am this person and I do have this experiences, this wisdom that comes with it, but I don't look the part, right? And I'm grateful. I hope it stays that way. But the point is I don't look the part. So here I was trying to, contain myself and talk to these people and answer their questions. And I thought it kind of, a little comical, but I was enjoying the conversation. And it got to a point when they were like, well, okay, well, where did you start? And how has business been? And what does it look like for you? And I remember when I first started out, I was afraid to tell anybody anything. Not because I was lying, but most of the time it was because I felt like it wasn't enough. It wasn't impressive at all. But once I started talking, they would be like, oh my God, that's impressive. I'm thinking, not really, but okay, if you say so, I'll go with that. And I remember, listening to Mastin Kipp, and he always starts off by saying, he's had hundreds and thousands of, clinical hours of blah, blah, blah. And he, has all this experience under his belt. He's trying to prove to you the statistics that show that he has the basis or the soapbox that he's built himself to be able to speak about the things that he's speaking on. And I was like, man, I can't even do that. Like, how do I even quantify that? What do I say? And it wasn't until the last couple of days where I started explaining the things that I'm doing, the various platforms that I'm on, the kinds of projects that I've undertaken just for myself, just to, to try and do something. It wasn't until I heard the words come out of my mouth that I realized I really have accomplished a couple of things. I really have done some things that are quite impressive. I mean, yeah. For me to be able to say that I have interviewed hundreds of people around the world is true. It's not an embellishment. It is not an exaggeration. It's true. You can go on YouTube and check it. Not that I get lots of views or anything, but they're there. I did the work, okay? They're not edited. They're not pretty. The thumbnails aren't cool, whatever. But the point is I did the work. It's there. And when I say around the world, I'm talking about, I didn't interview all my relatives. They are all around the world, by the way. I'm talking about people that I've met along the way, people that I went to school with, maybe people that, I was part of a coaching group with that I got to know over the internet. It was just amazing stuff. And when I say around the world, I mean, I've interviewed people from London. I've interviewed people from, from Australia. I've interviewed people from the US, lots of people from the US, South Africa, a couple of people from South Africa. I have interviewed people, some people from Singapore recently, a couple of people from Europe, and I have been fascinated all the while. People from Sri Lanka, people from India, and the list will go on. It will continue because I'm not going to stop. I just love the process. I love helping people tell their stories. So I love to be able to say that I've done this. And it seems like this great big feat, but it didn't take much. If I think about it, the time was still the same. Each interview is about an hour. I've done over 100 of them from all around the world. That means it's only 100 hours worth of work. For those of you who work 40 hours a week, every week, for, years and years, that's really not that much time. So if you think about it, it's been freaking phenomenal. And I didn't do it every day, I did it every so often. I did interviews of people who are in all kinds of different fields. I've done creative storytellers, I have interviewed oracle card readers, I've interviewed people who are in energy medicine, as in shamans and yoga instructors. I've done business coaches, lots of business coaches. I've interviewed people who teach about sexual freedom and confidence, because that is a way to help people really empower themselves and feel good about themselves without having to deal with the trauma that comes with sex ed, right? I've talked to people who were actors and actresses as children, and something happened along the way and they're doing something different now, but that experience stays with them. I interviewed a young lady who had the chance as a child to interview Nelson Mandela. Amazing, phenomenal woman. And she is just such a light. The point is, I've interviewed these people, and one thing remains the same. They're proud of their journey. They're not going to stop learning or pushing themselves to become better, but they've learned to be more themselves as the years went by than anyone else at the moment. And it's their stories that I want to push through the media, because I think there's so many of us that are worried about whether we're taking the right route or not. And if I can show you enough stories with enough of a varied background, with, from different economic groups, from different racial groups, from different languages, countries, like all of that, like if I can show you that all of them go through some of the same situations, some of those same big lessons, then you have nothing to worry about. You will know your path. You will know when you're straying away from it and when you're walking towards it. You'll know. And that's been the whole thing, right? I love that. I really love that, because that's part of what I teach: how to know yourself, how to trust yourself. People will come and go. The advice will change with the times, I guarantee you, right? But your path will be your own, and you need to be able to recognize it. So that was one thing, right? To be able to say that, yeah, I've done hundreds of interviews with people from around the world. Felt pretty good about that. The other thing, I am able to actually open my mouth and say, hey, I have a podcast. Oh my God, where is it? Like, I've never heard of it. Of course, there are millions of podcasts. Everybody's doing it. It's the coolest thing ever, right? Everyone's got a podcast. I started my podcast 3 years ago, and I wasn't sure where I was going with it. And honestly, I started a blog the same day that I started the podcast. I had this plan. The blog, I wrote like 5-6 pieces and then I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. I just stopped. But I continued with the podcast. I felt good about that. I didn't have to sit there and look at grammar. I didn't have to upload it with a picture and like make it look pretty. Like, it was easy. It was easier just to leave my brain, like unload my brain for the day onto a podcast episode, and that was it. And I was really proud to be able to say, hey, yeah, I started with nothing. I started with no equipment. I still don't really use equipment. I use my phone because it's simple. Like, the easiest thing to do is what I'm going to go with. That way I don't have any excuse for not doing it. So if I can do it on my phone, I'm going to get it done right away. My podcast at the moment, not including this episode and the couple others that I have on my phone that I have not published yet, I have over 700 podcast episodes, all of which are on Spotify, on iTunes, and on YouTube. So as much content as my channel has, I should get tons of traction, but I'm not trying yet. I'll get there. I will. I'll go back and I'll make sure everything looks great and is eye-catching, so that people will actually be drawn towards the channel itself. But for now, I'm content to create the content. My Instagram page has been there since 2013. I've left it the way that it was before. I did not clear my feed when I started my business page, but I left it the way that it was before to be able to remind myself of where I came from. I want you to be able to scroll down, if you got the time, scroll all the way down and see what I used to post and what I'm posting now, because I need you to know that I did not create a persona to become a brand. I simply streamlined my content. I simply focused what I was already saying so that it was visually appealing. The most professional thing about my entire business right now is the Instagram page. Trust me. The website's coming. The Facebook page is there. LinkedIn is, it's all right. But the one I put the most effort into right now is Instagram. But I'm glad and I'm proud to be able to say, yeah, 700 plus episodes of a podcast, over 100 interviews from around the world. I'm doing the work. And there was a time where I really felt like an imposter. Like, how could I even say that I've done all these things? What is emotional intelligence? Who the hell knows what that is besides Ashley Sahabian, who did a TED Talk about it? I know it's becoming the in thing right now to control your emotions, but how many people are really teaching that who aren't psychologists or therapists? And even then, when they talk, they're talking pure theory. How many people are opening up to tell them, hey, you know what? I applied the theories in my life. I tried several different schools of theory in my life, and these are the things that stuck. So let me teach you what worked for me. And hopefully if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, I know the other theories. Let's talk about what might work for you. Let's try a couple things. And no, it's not hypnosis where I can change your entire state of being. It's not like that at all. I want to get you to open up and talk. Because the answers about your life will come from inside of you. And yes, I felt like an imposter, right? At first, I wasn't sure that I could say that I had a podcast that was worth it, because the next question would be, well, how many people will listen to it? And what's your reach like? And how many countries are you in? It's not about that, though. I've been consistent. I have been consistent. And even so, people are going to ask you, well, what's your degrees? Like, well, did you study this stuff? Like, are you allowed to do these things? You think that Paula Deen went to culinary school in order to be able to publish her cookbooks or have a Cooking Network show? No. She found a way to make bag lunches for people while she was going through a divorce with 2 young children in order to make ends meet. And she cooked and cooked and cooked for so many people that it became easier for her to be able to talk about the fact that she had experience. She put in the hours, is basically what it comes down to. Now, lucky for me, which I don't really talk about that much, which is why I felt like an imposter, I do have the credentials. I have an undergrad in psychology, which honestly, I had a bachelor's degree in biology when I first started out. And it just so happened that I just didn't like chemistry all that much, and I really didn't like botany all that much, so I switched into something that was more meaningful to me because I really wanted to understand why people did what they did. I'm actually published. We did a study on rats and how much they can remember. We realized that people, like rats, can understand a pattern of 3 to 7 digits at a time. After that, they got to break it down into smaller pieces. I'm sorry, 3 to 9, I believe it was. 3 to 9 digits. I'm published on that piece of research. We went down to Florida to present it. And I forgot that piece. Because you don't talk about it that much, you forget about the things that you have accomplished. I have a master's degree in education with a focus on online instructional technology. And that was back in 2005 when people weren't thinking about online instructional technology. When it was like a weird thing to be able to get your master's online in the first place. I went to school and made sure that I studied as much as I could because I knew once I finished school and I started real life, I was not going back to school if I could help it. Along with the master's and the bachelor's degree, I have certification from Villanova about professional human resource management because I thought that was really important. I thought that went hand in hand with the psychology that I learned. And outside of that, I have 20 years of experience in corporate America and Singapore. Work experience where I worked retail, I worked hospitality, I worked sales and marketing, I worked, shipping and handling, freight forwarding, I worked logistics. I did all of that, 20 years worth. And outside of all of that, outside of the education, outside of the work experience, I lived. I lived through a great many hardships. So when I am able to actually tell my story, I feel good about it now. There was a time where I felt kind of weird. I would tell the same story. It's not that the story has actually changed or anything, except for the work experience. It kind of increased over the years, right? It's not that the content or the value of the things that I've achieved over the years changed. It's just that I didn't feel confident about saying that, and then it would have a meaning for you. And now it does, and I feel good about that. It took me a while to realize how much I've done. It took me a while to feel good about how much I've done. But I'm really proud of the fact that I never stopped. That I never let the reach stop me. I never let the amount of likes and followers stop me. I just kept creating because it makes me feel good. It does. It really makes me feel good. And the fact that I do this for myself now, I'm not part of a firm that does this. I do this for myself, which means I get to curate the kind of content that I do, the buck stops with me. I know whether it's within brand or not. I can do it the way that I want to do it. I don't have anyone telling me that they don't like this, that they don't like that. They want me to adjust it 10,000 times. I don't have to do that shit at all. And I feel good about the fact that once I put it out there, I'm just going to let it be out there. I don't second guess. I don't worry about it. I just put it out there because I know it came from my heart. So if any of you are out there thinking about, well, what do I have to possibly offer this world? What degree do I have? Or what value can I possibly offer because my experience isn't that much? I'm telling you, think about what you're saying. There are people out there that want to learn from you because you're really good at this one thing. I've been on Twitter just recently, and I've met so many wonderful people, and there are people out there that are making custom keyboards. That's really cool. That's like such a gamer thing to do, right? But to be able to make custom keyboards, you know how much you need to understand? I don't understand that stuff. I'm not mechanically inclined. There are so many people that, edit videos, like people that make TikTok look so effortless. And I'm thinking, I don't even know how to do this shit. Like, how is it so cool looking? Somebody teach me. But guess what? I have paid $10 for a crash course in video editing from someone who supposedly is such a great TikTok account holder, like a couple million followers or whatever. And it was only $10. Why couldn't you do the same thing? Every one of you have a skill set. Every one of you is really good about something because you're interested. It's something that catches your eye. You obsess about these things. You constantly Googling and looking up more interesting ways to finesse your craft. Those are the things you need to be teaching. Those are the things you need to be able to put into the marketplace and let people know that you are a pro and you can do this. I spoke to a young man who was a mridangist. Okay, percussionist is not just mirdangam. Mirdangam, tabla, like anything that can create a beat, he's really good at. And I'm waiting for him to say, you know what, I'm teaching people now. I'm opening up a school on YouTube or whatever so I can teach people. Right now he just does covers of songs, and that's good enough because we're like, yo, that sounds dope. Come on now. Travis Barker started somewhere, and he is a known name just for percussion now, right? That didn't start out of nowhere. He continually showed the world what he was capable of. So when I see these people, when I get a chance to tell their stories and I'm talking to, all of these other people, I get excited for them. I want them to understand that they have this spark within themselves that they're supposed to show and shine for all the world to see. And yeah, I was scared of my light too. And yeah, I was timid about, talking about what I've accomplished and what I've done. And I was afraid that people would say, oh my God, it's not good enough. And yeah, I had a couple haters come along. And with the haters, I had a couple people that genuinely wanted to help and told me, hey, if you just tweak this and if you just adjust that, it'll be great. But the point is, can't nobody deny the fact that I've created as much as I've created. And the fact that I've created it in the last 3 years, yeah. I saw a quote today and it made me smile from ear to ear. It was something to the effect of this girl. Let me see if I can find the quote. Hold on. Hang on 1 second. All right. It says, because she competes with no one can compete with her. And that's exactly what I did. It took me a while to figure it out, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't comparing myself to the other podcasters out there. Of course, everybody has a better way of doing things, but no one can do it like I do. No one can do it like Oprah does. No one can do it like Martha Stewart does. She has her own brand. They all have their own brand, right? And eventually I will be a brand. That's the way I've created myself. That's the way I've created my business. And one day people will know who Rasati is. But for now, I'm doing it my way. And I'm trying my best not to compare myself to anybody else because I will see things differently. And I don't want to be influenced by the way other people do things. I don't want to be doing things because other people are doing them. Yeah, sure, we're all stuck in the house and everyone has made Dalgona coffee. But that's just for fun. This is business. So if you got any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below. I would love to answer whatever I can. But in the meantime, stop being afraid of your light. Stop being afraid to tell people what you love doing. Maybe it's Comic-Con related. Maybe it's the fact that you know everything about every comic book ever when it comes to Spider-Man or Batman. I don't know. Maybe your thing is sewing. Oh my gosh. Maybe you make clothes. Maybe you're just the shit when it comes to makeup and hair. Whatever your thing is, if you love doing it, you should be proud that you love doing it. Tell the world. You never know who you'd inspire. All right, you guys, you take care, and I will catch you again soon.